Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your media and production questions 7 days a week. Courtney Gooden in Hollywood is our reader today. Courtney, what's our first question?
Well, the first one up comes in from Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in New Mexico, here in the USA. If you were going to set up an AWS instance for running Vectorworks, what size and instance type would you use, and how would you think about storage?
Alex?
You probably don't need a ton of storage for it. I mean, a lot of times in Vectorworks, you're not generating that much content. So making sure that you have, a spare 500 gigs, I think is probably going to be all you need for that. And then I guess the question is, what are you modeling? I think that Vectorworks actually is a pretty efficient app and is not going to need a ton of power. So I think that the question is are you building something that's really complex? Are you doing, I know that you're oftentimes doing lighting layouts and so on and so forth. So, I think that, a G4 is probably where I would go, which is a little bit more powerful than your basic setup. But I think that'd be probably what I'd say. You might want to go to something larger if you're doing really large scenes.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Mike Edwards in Brooklyn in New York City. Morning, everyone. What does the panel recommend to find and eliminate any stale cascading style sheets on a website? Manual crawling is not an option.
Alex?
I don't know if we're not the strongest. I mean, usually we just try to throw an answer to everything, but there are so few web developers on our
But if you think about it, CSS, HTML, it's all text. This sounds like the perfect thing for you to go into an LLM, define what you're saying is what you're qualifying as stale, whether it's a certain class, code from a certain era. Like I've gone into code that's fairly antiquated, that is not a common language, and it's like it's a French database language from the 80s that is still somehow used somewhere. And I'll say, hey, this is the kind of code that I'm looking for, identify things that are deprecated, and it's been able to go through. If I can point it at documentation that defines all those things, it's actually, whether it's been ChatGPT or Claude, have done very good jobs at helping me, weed out some of that old stuff. Jason?
My thought is that do you have a CMS? Is this a content management system that's rendering out this CSS? In which case, you can't just go in and mess with it. I've got to say it depends. And if I were CJ, or if I were you, I would take CJ's advice and basically just say, is any of this necessary? Please circle yes or no. And, expect that CSS is just a subset of how websites appear. So you can't really mess with it, or you might end up breaking something that you no longer have time to manually fix now, and you have to rebuild the whole thing.
Alex?
Yeah, the one thing to also think about is what your website's mission is. So I think that we're in office hours, we're kind of thinking through that as well. I think that we thought of websites as like this is going to hold all of our stuff kind of thing. But I find myself not going to websites very often anymore. And when I get there, I usually have a very specific, I want to find this, I want to sign up for something, I want to do something else. I don't spend as much time on them as I used to. I don't know what your website is specifically, but a lot of folks that I'm working with have really focused on a variety of different platforms. The website is there to tell people that you're there, to possibly pull in, call to actions, or to sell something, or to gather emails, and so, or contacts, and tell you where everything else is. But I would also, beyond just stale CSS, I'd be thinking about how many people are coming to your site, why are they coming to the site? Do you need a website as complicated as we used to think we needed? Because a lot of the content and everything else, you really want to look at how to leverage the platforms that are around you to make that possible. Because I just spend so little time on the web now. I just, on the actual web, doing stuff without, going through some platform that I'm working on. And so I've been thinking about that hard because of, us thinking about it here at Office Hours.
Ronnie?
I just the other day entered some old web page. We've been doing web pages for ages, and I put the source code for old web page, which is built traditionally, put it into Cursor, which is using both Claude and GPT and a few of the other stuff they developed themselves. And Claude is probably the one that answered this. And it just updated this entire web page to a more modern look and keeping everything in place. So the technology we have nowadays to be able to redo stuff is amazing. So my suggestion is just put all the old source into the GPT or Claude or even Cursor and have that fix everything.
And if you're going to go down the route of kind of cleaning house and building from the ground up, this is a tremendous opportunity to start to play with tools like Ronnie mentioned, Cursor, but also V0 for building either web applications or websites. I think Harper Reed was on one of the Twitch shows, and the quote was great. It's like, the code is cheap, so just keep generating it and throw it out if it doesn't work and try again, and just keep iterating, and you're going to find yourself doing 6, 8, 10-week sprints in a matter of a weekend, and it's pretty incredible. We developed an in-house web app with Cursor this week that I would have had to bring in a contractor and have meetings back and forth. We would have had 6 meetings about discovery and what's the user stories that everybody wants to go with. I've been down that road. It's so painful when you just say, I just want to do the thing. You can now have this creative idea of what you want your website to be and get a product very quickly. It's amazing. So just don't be scared. Even if you think you don't know what you're doing, just try with some of these tools. Next question.
Next question comes in from Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. Guy says, I keep getting ads for Resi. A lot of houses of worship seem to be using it. How does it work, and what are the alternatives? And he has a link at resi.io.
Alex?
Yeah, this is the platform here. So this is Resi, and they have a variety of different platforms, both hardware and software. So they have their own encoder, which they showed here somewhere here, but they have lots of analytics. They also have, for streaming, they have a little studio. They have media sites. So the media site lets you kind of put all your content up there for a house of worship. A lot of times house of worships aren't experts in streaming, and so this seems to be a relatively good way to make it easier. Now, one of the things that they talk about is being able to be very resilient and being able to be down as much as 10 minutes out of internet before you lose feed. Now, what that means is they're buffering for you. So they're just, they're creating a buffer for you that's 10 minutes long so that you can handle a lot of those things on your own. And so they're kind of making up for the fact that a lot of house of worships don't have very good internet because they haven't prioritized that. If you have a strong internet provider at your house of worship, you will not need some of the tools that they're talking about here. The alternatives, of course, are rolling your own. You'll have more control. But again, if you have a smaller volunteer workforce that is trying to put this stuff together, having something all in one, you turn like a bit of a turnkey that makes some of the stuff easier may be the right solution for a given church. I think that the largest, there's a lot of complicated ways to do this, but the largest house of worships that we see right now are using YouTube. like they're streaming, like that's how they stream it. That's how they keep all you can build. I think that there's this idea of building your own platform is a little antiquated in the sense that, YouTube will keep all your videos. You can stream them up to 4K 60. You can do, you could buffer it if you wanted to, but the main thing is that if you get a good internet connection and even OBS or something like that, you can stream to it. It doesn't take very much to do that. So I think that that's kind of been the future. I know that the largest ones are doing it that way. I think that this made sense 10 years ago when YouTube wasn't the largest media viewing platform in the world. Like I just was reading something this morning about YouTube now is bigger than Netflix, bigger than Disney, bigger than the number of hours being watched on YouTube is higher than everyone else at this point. So I have a hard time seeing why, if I was a house of worship, I would use something that is actually harder for my viewers and also creates no organic growth. So YouTube also puts it out there. If someone's watching something else, they might watch yours. So I think that's the problem with the platform that I would have.
The other thing that I think a little bit about is, what does this look like if a house of worship were to adopt it in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? I know a lot can change during that time, even with something like YouTube, but I worry about using a more obscure platform or service, because you've got a volunteer at the time when you're setting it up who is technical and is more of that engineering type mind, and they're going to move all the knobs and tweak all the things and get it just right. And then if there's a change in that platform and you need to pivot and that person's not there anymore, then all of a sudden that smaller volunteer-based organization's caught flat-footed, and that's a risk. Next question.
Next question comes in via QR code from Philadelphia, from Scott Pulsifer. Scott asked, apologies to the editors, but we're seeking AI methods to condense long-form recorded conversations into shorter summaries with the hope of working with it collaboratively. Any suggestions for successful hacks so far?
Alex?
It depends on how short. how short are you trying to go? And what kind of, we've been building shorts with Opus, and I think that has been very successful from our perspective of being able to look at something, grab a bunch of stuff. I think that when you look at a lot of the stuff that you're seeing out there, very large companies and so on and so forth are using these types of AI tools to grab a bunch of things. Now, these are less summaries and more grabbing snippets of it. It can summarize to some degree. I don't know where else to go with that. I think that you could, I haven't tried to pull together an actual audio video summary from a larger thing, but that'd be an interesting puzzle.
Jason?
Yeah, it really just depends on how short you go. It just occurred to me that over the last 5 years, if you were to tell an LLM, take the last 5 years of office hours and summarize it back down, it would basically just be a ginormous grid of everybody going, it depends.
And Scott, it's only 6 days away. Go Birds. Next question.
Next question comes in from Ronnie's neighborhood in Tromsø, Norway. Kjetil Yersvold says, what task or workflow tools like Trello, Asana, Notion do the panel recommend, and for what reasons?
Nigel?
So going back to the question of, well, it depends. Is this for you or is this for your group, your team, your business? So my desktop is littered with individual tools that I have tried to use to improve my workflow and failed continuously. And that's all about me and the way I work. And I end up going back to just using Notebook on my Mac and just keeping a list of running things that I need to do and manage that way. I know small groups really like Trello, and they can manage a small number of team members sharing a set of to-dos. If, however, this is about your company and there is a culture for doing this, then Asana or Monday or one of those other tools are great. But if this is just for you, you have to work out what your style of working is and then find the tool that works for you. And nobody else can do that but you.
Alex?
Yeah, for me, by myself, it's just Apple Notes. And I don't have, that is the repository of all things I need to remember. so I use it for so many. And then the thing that most people don't use with Apple Notes is it'll hold a lot of images. So I put a lot of stuff into it. B, you can put it in folders, so you can have lots of folders of of ideas that you have there, so that you don't have to have them in one long piece. And C, things that you need over and over again, I pin them. So I have pins of lots of things. Not lots of that ruins the thing, but I probably have 20 things that are pinned, like the link to the show and the link to other things. And so I link to Mac Break, link to these things that I do often. I oftentimes have those in there. So I do agree with Nigel. It's figuring out what works for everybody when you want everyone to use them. I don't work in a lot of environments where we get into that. Like everybody's got their checklist. We have meetings and we go over what we said we were going to do, and we talk about doing it. We don't share a lot of checklists. And I've worked in a lot of things where we just we had a producer that was managing those checklists and would ask people about them, but we just didn't have a thing where it wasn't a culture anywhere I've worked so far. And I've worked on, a lot of big companies, or been a contractor for a lot of big companies. It was never the culture to have a bunch of shared lists. I know some people do that. I just I've never seen it in the wild.
Ronnie?
Yeah, so I know Kjetil, and we've been through this for many, many years. And I tend to see there's a lot of different organizations we cooperate with, and everyone is using their favorite tool. Someone is using Trello, someone is using Asana. Asana is more for software project, I think. Notion is something that we use today. I use it both personally and in the organization. And the flexibility is kind of the next step where we stop using Airtable, which we used for a few years. And before that, we were deeply into Asana. And I think this changes with the way that we tend to organize the content. And inside an organization, everything is kind of fluid. And we're getting more and more used to getting it the way we would like to have it, like in Airtable and Notion. And the last upgrade from Notion makes it also work offline, which is a great feature. And of course, in the event business, you have providers of vendors like Cvent, which has their own cloud platform. There is nothing offline that you can use in that regard. And there are other tools that we use in event production that some are online, some are offline. And of course, not to forget the Google environment. And lately we see Zoom also are kind of pushing into this market of communication. So I think it really depends on what you're going to use and who you are going to use it with. If it's personal, as the chat asks, if it's personal or if it's for an organization, small or big, or if you have a lot of intercommunication with the different organizations, so cross-communication between those. And in those cases, we see that tools like Microsoft Teams is really, really heavy in that regard. So it really depends.
Jason?
I'm with Alex, and Apple Notes is where I go. All right, so here's your little fun hack for the day. By the way, this is the THX startup sound, but at the very bottom, I have a cursor, and if you hit right next to let's see, on an Apple keyboard, hit Shift, period, that'll give you 2 forward arrows, and you can index. So this, I just hit forward, and it will search the entirety of notes and give me a Wikipedia-style link to my other notes, and I can build an index of notes. That's how I stopped pinning stuff.
Alex?
And just one thing that Ronnie was talking about Airtable is that I don't usually use it for checklists, but we use it to manage data. And the advantage of that is that I have a database. I have probably 15 different ways of looking at that database with different filters, different searches, different, so I have lots of different views of it that are done. And then I have interfaces, which I expose to other people that are very simplified. Like it just might be 5 terms or whatever that are summaries of these different pieces that I can send someone who's not technical, who doesn't need to know everything, just needs to know those things. I'm working on a project where we have 400 sites that have to be managed, and there's lots of little details in those and all the data about like what's in every one of those. I don't know of another platform that I could have done this without Airtable.
You can ask questions 24/7 at askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. It's always open. Nothing to sign up for, nothing to log into. Just throw in your name, throw in your question, scan the QR code. We'll get it into the show over the next few days. askofficehours.global. Next question.
Next one comes in from Austin, Texas. Paul Valhus asks, is the OWC Jellyfish high-performance NAS the best storage solution for video teams compared to the DS1522plus Synology NAS and other NAS solutions? And he has a link to the Jellyfish.
Jason?
Paul, let me answer your question. Yes, given your constraints, it totally is. You're comparing an all NVMe raw NAS that starts at $6,000 empty to a box that starts at $700. And don't get me wrong, I like both of them, but you got to kind of compare apples to apples here.
Alex?
Yeah, the question is, are you working off of those or are you storing things? So Synology is a very cost-effective way to store lots of content. So you can, it's going to be much slower. It is going to be, but it's also a lot less expensive. Where we've seen Synology is where we have lots of raw data that needs to be backed up. Where we see Jellyfish, I've worked with Jellyfish drives on projects. In the last project we did at Jellyfish, we had 20 editors via fiber connected to a server with a Jellyfish, and they're all pulling and pushing content in and out of that drive. And it was probably the most decked out Jellyfish setup that I've ever seen. I mean, everything was maxed out on it, and they were able to continue to edit all week, for a project. And so that's what Jellyfish. You couldn't do that with Synology, but Synology, as Jason pointed out, is a lot less expensive.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Scott Pulsifer in Philadelphia. For studio audio with mics via Dante, which software programs do you recommend? For example, Izotope, but they offer many product choices and the costs can stack up quickly. Thanks.
Alex?
It depends. Like there's plugins, but what is the base software that you're doing? So usually when we've seen studios use a piece of software, that piece of software, whether it's Logic or others, is the core of what that is. So it's the plugins are sitting inside of something. The most common one that we see is Pro Tools. So Pro Tools in most studios is what we expect to see there. But we have seen some with Logic and a handful with Resolve. But really, the two that we see the most in studios is Pro Tools and Logic. And I would say that, and there's other ones with Nuendo and other ones with other things, but I would say that Pro Tools is probably 85% of what we've seen, Logic being 10% and the rest of it being 5%. The other 5% is everything else that's out there.
Ronnie?
Yeah, I really don't get the gist of the question. Is this for recording, or is it post-processing, or is organization, or as Alex suggests, using plugins? If it's for multi-track recording, there's a plethora of options. If you have a Mac, just get Logic. It will do the job perfectly. If it's other platforms, there are a lot of different solutions for that. And normally, we see that a few of these vendors are getting into the subscription model. So there is no buy once and cry once solution for a lot of these good stuff, except for Logic and a few others. So if you can specify what you're actually looking for, it would be easier to answer.
Jason?
In its purest form, Dante is basically just a substitute for cabling. Routers. Basically, it's a way to route audio. So if I read the question differently, it's like saying, I have a bunch of microphones that are going a bunch of places. What can I do with apps? We need more here.
Next question.
Next one comes in from a QR code question from Tim McDaniel in North Fort Myers, Florida. Watching reality shows where risks are taken, I'm always fascinated by film crews having to perform the same tasks, Ginger Rogers style, backwards and in heels. What is the most or riskiest or most dangerous situation you've been in for a production?
All right, Nigel, hope you're here with taps on.
So I don't think this is physical danger, but this may be mental danger. I ran an event every year for a Fortune 10 company in which they put probably the 300 most important clients for the profit of the company in the room for 3 days. And running it every year, it was really hard to make it very different. So one year, working with the client, we designed a program that started with a magician, which I thought would be an interesting one. And he's really very good. And it was a long time ago. It was digital and he interacted with the screen. It was very, very clever. And just before the show started, the head of the business, who had not been wanted to be involved in any of this, said, I hear there's a magician. I hate magicians. And the lights went down. And we started the show. And for the 3 minutes this magician did his thing, I thought maybe that was the end of my career. In the end of it, he said, oh, that was pretty good.
Ronnie.
Okay, I have this from many years back when we were flying helicopters to film for a TV station, and I was sitting in the helicopter this midwinter, so freezing cold. We were having the doors of the helicopter on one side, and I was just harnessed in and was kind of having 1 foot on the step where you step into the helicopter and 1 foot on the floor inside the helicopter. And I was filming on a mountain top, filming down at 15 degrees down, so almost directly down. And I was filming between my legs. So I was filming on the right side of the left foot, which was standing on the step into the helicopter. There was, of course, 2 safety harnesses. So I have one primary and one secondary, as you should have in these type of jobs. And the helicopter was slowly moving out to one side of the mountaintop. And there was some problem with my headset, so I didn't hear the pilot when he was asking me how he would like me to have this helicopter move. And he was slowly just hovering out to the side of the mountaintop. And the thing is that on the side of this mountaintop, it goes straight down like thousands of feet. This was really, really high, and it's a steep wall of stone going down this slope. And I was at the same moment I was watching through my camera. I was seeing this. The strangest thought hit my mind, and it was like this: if I lose my shoe now, it was a loose snowshoe. If I lose my shoe now, I will never find it. And that was how my brain reacted to danger.
At least you'd have it on film, though. I mean, it's just coordinating.
And you can always buy another shoe, Ronnie. Come on. You know, how dangerous is that? You got to go to, the shoe store. Ooh. I worked on a couple of dangerous films. One of them is notorious, called Roar. In fact, it was so dangerous, they did a documentary on it called Roar, the most dangerous movie ever made. And
I think Courtney wins this one today.
Yes.
For 2.5 years, I spent on that movie on the set with 120 to 130 large jungle cats every day. So that was quite an experience. And, we had safety measures in line. We had cages that, the crew could hide in. While the cats were loose, all the set, everywhere. We put the crew in cages occasionally or behind fences. And I was always notorious for being ultra cautious on the set, and I never got bitten once, even though 70 other crew members did. Over the 2.5 years, it was quite an experience traveling around with those lions and tigers. Also, I worked on the Africa portions where we shot in Africa, doing some really crazy stuff because the director was a little bit cuckoo in the head and was totally fearless and had no off switch. And so when you work with somebody that's impulsive, and the cinematographer was Jan de Bont, who became a director, who's notorious, who directed Twister and Speed, who's notorious for putting his actors through living heck to get the shot with no care over safety. So living with those two on the set for 2.5 years, that was really dangerous.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that, it's also dangerous for you or dangerous for others. I was in we did a projection in Battambang, Cambodia, where at first we had 20,000 people in a place that was supposed to have 6,000. The people said, "Oh yeah, it'll be 6,000," and then when we showed up, there was 20,000, and they're all packed in tight. And we had a lot of high winds, so we were very worried about our tent rolling through the crowd, which was not going to be a great experience. So we had people at every corner. I had the biggest Cambodians I could find standing at every corner, hanging onto it. Another one with a ladder on the far side of our projectors with a knife, and I just said, "You just got to cut the tent open. If I point to you, you need to cut that open so that it doesn't come out." So it was, and so we held through the high winds, and then. But I think that the ones that you have to be kind of careful of is you end up in a bad situation very quickly, which you weren't paying attention to. Like I was in northern Iraq, and this was during some of the troubles, and I was shooting, and where we were was fine. we took a left turn and realized that we had gotten on the wrong road and we were on our way to Mosul. And this is when Mosul was a little hectic. And, it's one of those things that you take, you're driving around, you take a wrong turn and suddenly you're in the middle of a true war zone. I mean, you go from being in a war zone to be into live lead. And we didn't quite make it there, but it was pretty close. So that was probably the least well thought out thing that I've done in working.
Jason.
Courtney totally wins here. Alex is absolutely right. It's more like how quickly can you just get entirely out of your own way? I have been, 100 miles from anywhere, filming in a place where no one would hear you scream. And honestly, those are the places that are dangerous. And I'm still here, so they weren't, right? I don't think of them as it.
I don't view it as that dangerous, but I will. Ronnie talked about the primary and the backup to the helicopter. I will tell you the backup is super useful when the primary fails because but the problem with the backup is it'll throw you. In case you're wondering, the backup is loose, so it'll let you out of the window, the side door, the door you took off the helicopter and said you didn't need.
Yeah, you got a 6 feet of whoops.
You can come out of it. So the key is, in case you're wondering, if you're in Brazil and you're flying around Christ the Redeemer and your primary pops open and you got to get your feet on either side of the door, and so but then you have them keep shooting, So anyway,
the one time I had I think it's out of NDA and all that stuff now, but one of the photos that I shot in Thailand when the iPhone 7 first came out. It was the first iPhone that had water resistance, and so I was deep into a jungle at an elephant place that rehabilitated elephants who were formerly would be ridden or things like that. And this was a sanctuary. It washed out in the floods last year. Very sad. But I was, they weren't really concerned about safety. They were like, hey, you got to watch out for yourself. And so I almost got stepped on by, this big Asian elephant, not as big as the African elephants, but it's an elephant. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to test out the water resistance as I'm in this pool with these elephants. And it goes underwater. And it occurred to me that I already was the most remote I've ever been in my entire life. And if I lose this cell phone, then I'm really cooked because there's no way that I'm ever getting out. Like, I have no way to connect with the outside world. But the way that you used to get on the Shot on iPhone campaign is you would post it to Flickr, #iPhone. And then somebody from Media Arts or whoever reached out and said, hey, you have an amazing photo. And I signed all the paperwork and said, you can use it forever. Please put my picture of this baby elephant on a billboard. And I didn't make it. This close.
There you go.
Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're very happy you're here. But I got to tell you, you're missing probably about half the show. We are on live every single morning, 7 a.m. Pacific in Makana. And that's your chance to ask questions in real time. But since it's real time, you can also vote on what gets answered. And there's this entire community of some of the smartest production people in existence in our community chat. And so there's more to just watching Office Hours. You really got to be a part of it. Go to officehours.global/join, get on the mailing list, and then, we'd love to see you live tomorrow. We have fun. Next question.
Next one comes in from Mr. C.J. Covell in Cincinnati, Ohio. What are the panel's favorite network and cable testing tools? See options at $500, $1,000, $2,000, and trying to see where I cross into the territory of diminishing returns.
And here's the thing. It's not just purely for networking use. Sometimes it's using an RJ45 end over a Cat5 or a Cat6 cable, but it's sending communication signals in another way. Like I had an industrial Cat5 that was pinned out 4 with only 4 wires. There weren't even 8 wires in the cable. And I started asking questions like, okay, how many volts are running through this? Like what kind of cable tester would I need to see that? And because I went and I patched it with just a regular Ethernet cable, made sure that the pins lined up, only use those 4, but then it worked, but I thought to myself, man, I had to do more trial and error than I would have liked. Alex?
For me, when it comes to cable testing, when it comes to network cable testing, I just find the fluke that fits into my budget.
Is it the fluke? It is
yes,
the fluke is the... Okay.
The fluke is, it's like the fluke that fits into my budget is usually the one that they keep on adding features, but those are the ones that are typically the best.
I went on the Fluke section of Amazon and things escalated very quickly. And I was like,
They can.
oh, boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason.
Yeah, Fluke has really made a kind of an entire company out of, we're going to take something that's really, really cool from GitHub. We're going to build it into the neatest, most durable hardware there is. And then we're going to figure out how to charge you $5,000 for something that you can do from a GitHub project. So I will go on the low end. This is Klein Tools, just simple Scout Pro 3. And this will do tone generation, and it comes with a couple different ends. So you've got your simple ends that are simply, that are used to identify network jacks, and then your more complex ends that will actually, push a little bit of data and check for various things when it's the other side of your cable. So,
and will those give you distance default readings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. PoE is a separate side port on. Let me go back to that. PoE is a separate side port on this guy, and it's surprisingly accurate.
Courtney?
Well, I also believe in the Flukes, and I also have a couple of network testers that test out, the different Ethernet type of cables, just to check the wiring. Especially if these are handy if you're making your own cables, because you always get them hooked up wrong or inverse, or tell you which ones are the crossover cables and which ones aren't. But I've had to up my game lately, and I had to get one of these because I went to fiber internet now, and so this is a fiber tester that it's Chinese. CSP 322C is the model number. I'm not sure who makes it, but it has a little button here to change the different wavelengths of laser that are used, different, 1550 nanometers, 1577, 1625, 850. So it has the two connectors here. You plug your cable into either side of it, and it can show you the dB loss of that particular optical fiber over the length of that cable. So it's handy to have for doing that kind of stuff, and it can tell you your signal level coming out of that optical fiber. So that's become the new necessity when dealing with optical fibers, which I never had to have before.
Jason?
Yeah, last little bit here. For those who don't know, coaxial cable and SDI, the difference is, just a little bit of money, but it's maybe, it's all using the same thing. Another nice thing about the Scout is you can ID and run and test for your standard coaxial cable, which is a little benefit.
Thank you. Next question.
Next one comes in from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. What other industries have you seen people succeed in who have previously worked in media? And conversely, where have people outside of media come from and achieved success? Politics.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that event production it's not really moving from media, but we've seen people go from being in media to working on events because they just understand the flow of live things that are there. But people go out of media, if it's not live media, they go out to lots of different things that usually have to do with producing things. Managing processes is something that someone in media oftentimes is good at because you have to kind of think through those things. As far as people from the outside that end up in media, it's anyone who's detail oriented, attention to detail, and folks that are, pretty good with other people, because it's really in media production, so much of it, unless you're at the very top of what you do, it's really how well you fit into a team.
Nigel?
Yeah, in terms of people moving from media into other things, I've seen a lot of people, both journalists and politicians, work for corporate communications teams in large companies because they're very used to the way that the people that those corporate communications have to talk to think and respond. And so you can sort of jump to the other side of the table. In terms of people moving into media, Alex gave a good answer. The other thing I think you see a lot of is people becoming content specialists. You got to look at Joe Rogan and his background. He was an actor, he was the stand-up comedian, and he's rewritten the rules of podcasting. Now, is that media? You can argue rightly or wrongly, but people who have over time refined a skill around communication and messaging can find a role in media too.
Courtney.
Yeah, I'll agree with Nigel. And a lot of people that worked in media have moved into marketing of corporate communications for a large corporation, because they have a lot of these big corporations have a media department that will rival some, television stations out there. They can own and operate a lot of video equipment for producing their own internal videos. Another thing is old radio announcers tend to go into, reading for audiobooks, as Bill Davis is a success story here, who's not here today, who's moved from doing announcing to doing audiobooks, which is a lucrative, apparently lucrative method of taking your talents that are learned. And now that DJs are not really used much anymore and are being supplanted by AI and automated services these days, that's a good transition point for all those old DJs.
Jason.
I did 15 years of internet radio, and that's a funny thing to start with. But in order to think and present and create something that you would want to listen to, you end up with a whole bunch of just other skill sets that to me were just kind of fringe benefits that are just inherently useful. That, not being afraid to speak on stage, for example, being able to think on your feet. I mean, there are so many that it's kind of hard to start with just a couple.
Alex?
Yeah, and Jack Cannon pointed out, Jack was talking about, I find military folks enjoying moving to media because it's a team sport and there's a sense of purpose. And I will say that I have had the opportunity to work with a fair number of folks formerly with the military and media, and they show up on time. They're used to prepping, like going through something over and over again until it becomes something that's second nature, and they understand why to do that. You get into folks who didn't come from that experience, and they'll sit there and go, I don't understand why I have to keep on doing this on board. And someone that comes from that military background will tend to figure that out. They tend to be able to give you feedback, but when you say, I just need it to be done this way, they'll just go do it that way, And so there's definitely, we've been, again, had the opportunity, especially some of the stuff that I've worked on. We've worked with folks from some of the special operations, and they're really good. Like they learn really fast. So you doesn't take a lot to show them how to get something done and have them go down the path and make it happen.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Roz Humphreys in Comox, British Columbia. What would be my main options for adapters to keep my North American devices charged and running in Iceland? I have an iPhone, an iPad, a MacBook, camera, drones, etc.
Ronnie?
Yeah, most modern devices is for dual voltage, so both 110, 120, and 230, 240. So just check on the power wart that goes into the wall, and you will probably find that it's supporting all voltages. So the only thing you would then need is a physical interface. So, sorry about that. It's going to this one. So this is one nice one. Just make sure that you have the right plug. So as you can see here, this is the normal plug we use in Europe, generally all over. But if your devices so these ones are earthed, as you can see, so there's an earth coming through, but this one does not have earthing. So what you need is the German version, which actually has the earth connected as well, and bring that further into this adapter. So just get a travel adapter that is actually, I'm having problems with my pre-selected things on my Stream Deck. So just get a travel adapter and you will be safe as long as your wall worth is dual voltages.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of things that you'll take with you are dual voltage, and so that is the that's the first thing. But you do want to check it. Things like hair, any kind of hair curler, any kind of thing that like an iron, those kinds of things are not dual voltage, and you'll end up with problems in that area. They get really hot pretty quickly at 240 volts. Ask me how I know. Anyway, so the one thing to look at is I try to keep the connection to the plugs to be as simple as possible. So these are little inserts, and this is to a Type EF to a regular North American plug. And I like to not have anything else going on. A lot of the plugs that are the way that you'll see a Type F is typically there's a hole that you can pop something into. That's just the way the plug works. And so what these do is they push right into that hole, either in the wall or in a strip, and they just make it a North American connection. Now, the other thing that I use, that I have a lot of that I still use, are these. You can see this was last purchased in 2016. So these are made by VCT, and VCT makes a lot of different versions of these. And so what this does is it's a converter. And now this one happened to be from the English or from the UK connection here, but you can get them in all different kinds of connections. And what they do is then they just make everything universal. That way, if you end up with mixed things you bought on site versus the things you have here, all of those work. And this works even with South African plugs, which is usually a challenge to find. They also make a VCT version of this. I couldn't quite find it quick enough. That has a C13 plug here. So there's a plug. So it's an actual C13 input. And so what's nice about that is when I go overseas, I usually have that one because I can walk into any hardware store and buy the cable that will connect to the wall, and so for $6. And so that way I don't, that one is kind of a universal one that goes there. But VCT makes a lot of these different ones. They've been kind of lifesavers, but I also carry a couple of those little converters that I just showed you. I tend not to get the one thing that I would recommend against is there's ones that have little like dials. You switch some in and you switch them out, and you switch them in and switch them out. Almost all of those are ungrounded, so they're almost, and so they'll give you voltage. But if you're sitting on a laptop, you'll feel your hand feeling like it's floating on your laptop. If you have a metal laptop like a MacBook, you'll feel like your hand's floating. That's because you're the ground. Like you're grounding that it's actually passing electricity through your arm, into your feet and into the ground. And so you want to think through that. It's not a lot of voltage, but it is, or it's a lot of voltage, not a lot of amps. And if you spend a lot of time in Africa with those little boxes, you'll end up with this dark patch on your MacBook, that was your skin. That was being electrolysis was moving your skin to the surface of that computer. Not that I know about that. And so stick with ones that are going to provide the ground for you, so that you don't become the ground.
Courtney?
Yeah, good suggestion. Iceland uses the European style 230 volts, 50 hertz Type C or Type F type connectors with a little round pins, and like Alex was saying, the little detinted circular plug that'll plug in here. I found this one on Amazon that looks interesting because it adapts for worldwide charging. It adapts to the EU style, plus the UK, Australia, which has the strange angled tines on there, and the USA. And
that's those ungrounded.
And that's the one that I would recommend against.
One. That's the one that Alex hates. But it interfaces to USB C and USB A in addition to just converting the AC plug between whatever the input is and this universal output, which accepts all different types on the output. So it's handy to have for that, but it's ungrounded. And a lot of plugs aren't grounded anyway. So on the other side, the thing you're plugging into may not be grounded either. So there's that.
Nigel?
If travel and small packaging is really important, I'm sure Alex will hate this one as well. In a hotel once, I was given one of these 2-meter adapters. They're, I think, probably more similar to the ones that Courtney just showed you, except they're very expensive. It was a gift, and I have traveled the world with this, and it's great. If, however, you are heading somewhere where you're thinking more about your iPad and your 2-pin non-grounded devices, there I have this little thing called a donut, and it fits in a very small container, and it's allowed on cruise ships, and it has one American plug, and then it allows you to have 5 or 6 other things adapted. So if you ever see that donut, that works really well. Again, these aren't grounded things, so you need to be careful how you use them. But when space is a premium, these things come in great handy.
Jason?
If you can standardize to a standard, power delivery, not USB, but power delivery battery, you can basically charge these without worrying about harming your devices and then use these devices in turn to charge your things.
I am a low-tech fan. I get the little basic plug adapter, like Alex says, and then I pair it with a power strip, an American power strip that can support up to 240 volts and has little USBs in it. So then I have one adapter and one plug that I need to bring, and then everything else in the hotel can plug right in. If you are getting some value out of office hours, there are a couple ways that you can give us some value back and support us. Of course, you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd appreciate that. Also, there's lots of volunteer opportunities. If you go to officehours.global/volunteer, you can find things to do both during the live show, but also around the show, keeping us organized and moving forward, and we appreciate that. Finally, you can contribute to the show financially. We are a nonprofit, so if you go to officehours.global/donate, you can chip in and help the show keep running. So we'd appreciate that. officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Next one comes in from Brett Below in Appleton, Wisconsin. Brett asks, how forgiving or helpful is Blackmagic Design when it comes to license issues? I want to move my DaVinci Resolve Studio license to a new Mac and misplace the little card with the key on it. Or am I spending my weekend ripping apart my office to find it?
Alex?
I would call them I would rip them apart my office first before you called them. I think you may need it. There's 2 different ways to get the Resolve license. One is with the good news is that Resolve only costs $300. The bad news is you do need to have the license. The very first thing I do when I pull that little card out of my I have a lot of Blackmagic cameras, and the first thing we do with the card is take a picture of it. so we take a picture of it and put it in notes. We were talking about notes earlier, so I've got notes of pictures of those cards. And usually, what's cool about notes is you select you can, once you take a picture of anything in notes, you can just select the text. And so then I have this one that just has the codes that are related to what I do there. I think that they might give you Blackmagic is pretty easygoing about a lot of those kinds of things. I'm not sure if they're going to give you a new number or not. If it's the first time, you might want to call them and find out. It may be something that they're willing to stretch on. So they're thinking usually long term about a lot of people using the product as opposed to then trying to tie it down like that. So good luck.
Jason?
I've never had to call support for this. I use Password Manager, and that's where I put the picture that Alex just described. I am pretty stinking sure that if you go into Library in the Mac and then go to Library, Application Support, Blackmagic Design, DaVinci Resolve, somewhere in here is going to be your license. I'm guessing. I don't know that, but I'm guessing. Give that a shot. See if you can Google it.
And I'll second Jason's comment about using a password manager. Anytime I get a license key, if it's audio hijack, loopback, DaVinci Resolve, Better Display, you name it, I have whatever that key is, and whatever, if it has an email that or a name that it has to match so that the hash matches, I just save that as another password. And then as soon as I open up the password manager when I'm setting up a new machine, I'm never looking for stuff. It's pretty nice. Next question.
Next one comes in from Noonan, Georgia. Tony Mobley asks, this has come up several times this week. Is tomorrow Ruthless Reviews?
Alex?
It's not. I have we're shooting, so we may be able to, if all goes well, we'll stream some stuff that you get to see a band playing out of Richmond, again, out of the airship. But because of that, we're not going to do a Ruthless Review.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Austin, Texas. Paul Valhus asks, what is the best instant camera that pro photographers actually use?
Alex?
The one that I've used the most, I don't know about all pro photographers, that a lot of them don't use instant cameras, but Polaroid. So the Polaroids are pretty popular as far as generating those. Where we used to use them is when we went to Africa, we would take pictures with our regular camera and then pictures with Polaroids, and we'd hand them to the people that we were taking pictures of, because it sometimes 25 years ago, it might be the only picture they have of themselves. That we're past that now. They all have they all have phones. But that's one of the things that we use them for. The one that my daughter has that she loves is the Fuji Stacks. And you can take pictures with your iPhone, and then it's a little printer. So it's not the whole thing. So Fuji makes this little thing, I think it's called Stacks, that I just know because she has me order more prints for her. So I get, but they are relatively convenient. They're a little smaller than your standard Polaroids. And she uses them in her journals. So she takes lots of pictures with her phone, and then the things that she wants to remember, the concerts, the other things like that, she prints out these tiny little images and puts them in her journals and stuff like that. And she loves it. So that's the one that I'd probably recommend.
Jason?
Plus one on what Alex said, the Fuji is the way to go here.
Courtney?
Yeah, I had a lot of experience with this in working. I worked on a documentary with Ansel Adams, and you could call him a pro photographer. And he would shoot everything on Polaroid, as Alex said, to the point to do a test photography, especially with his large format cameras. He had special Polaroid film made in 8x10. He knew Edwin Land, and would always shoot a Polaroid first, especially shooting black and white, and would look at his exposure balance and the zones. He used the zone method for calculating exposure. And he would always do that. And when we were shooting with Ansel out one day, he sets up the camera. We were in Big Sur, and he takes a shot, has the Polaroid back on his camera, counts to 25, peels off the back, looks at it. Ooh, his eyes get wide, and he quickly wads it up and throws it in the nearby trash can. He had forgot to set the exposure. So even Ansel Adams makes mistakes, and that Polaroid will tell you when you've made a really stupid mistake, and you don't discover it till you're in the dark room.
And the camera that Jason and Alex were talking about is the Instax. This is a little printer. I have one of these too. It does a really nice job. Now, the one thing I'll say for the instant Polaroids is because they're $60, $70, you can get them on sale. If you have, I had a family member that got married, and we bought 3 or 4 of them and then just passed them around all the tables. And it was hilarious to see what the non-professional photographers did, because they had this little camera and they were just goofing around. Now, they took pictures of themselves so they could get the little print, but the Polaroid has a micro SD card slot in it. So then the couple got all the goofy pictures that people took around, which is a nice touch for your event. Next question.
Next question comes in from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I'm getting the delivery of an AD4D Axient tomorrow, a handheld and lav. I'll put this on my Dante network to connect it to my X32. I haven't touched these units in about 2 years. Any updates I need to be aware of? Friendly RF environment, etc.
Ronnie?
Yeah, so what we tend to use when we are setting up any type of wireless systems is something you can see here. This is a tool, free tool from the creators of Soundbase. And what I've set up here is just a simulation of your, actually not a simulation, it's the last known digital TV channels that is visible here for your region. If I go to coordination, I can see that in according to my own equipment. So you just go up to the right corner here, add your equipment and the type of frequency band it's using, and then you will be able to frequency coordinate that together with all the other ones. This is the latest scan that is active RF scan of the area that has been done. And as you can see, the date here is the 21st is the scan done. And this is actually showing you the exact bands and frequencies that are actually being used at this particular date and time. And you can see here is some of the TV channels showing through. So this is a free tool if you don't need the more professional things. I have the professional version connected to a live scanner that when I go to a site, I can do a scan that is continuously updating within the venue or outside the venue, wherever I be. And I can push that coordination directly to the units we are using. So I had a tool, and lucky you got an Axient.
Alex?
Yeah, Tim McCulloch said that I don't think there's been any operational changes, and Mickey said, same, just run WWB or Soundbase.
Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate you on a Friday morning spending an hour with us getting smarter. Thank you to our panel for sharing all their life experience. I know I learn something every day. It's the best. Also, thank you to our producers for asking such great questions. It's amazing what you come up with, but it takes us down some roads that I didn't know I was going to go down today. And man, it's cool. And our back-end crew, we couldn't do this without you. Folks who are getting up early, staying up late all around the world to keep the show running, and all the folks who work all week long to help keep office hours what it is. You are the bedrock. If we had to go around in person today and ask these questions, the Tlaloc traversal would have taken us 33,000 miles. That's 54,000 kilometers and 264 million bananas for scale. See you in After Hours. Ronnie, you have such tremendous English, and I am going to adopt earthing instead of grounding. I think it is great.
I didn't want to correct that because I'm like, if you can't figure that out, you probably shouldn't be plugging stuff in. But earthing is such a better word.
It's better description.
It's a way better description. Thank you.
Yeah, but when we go to Mars, is it going to be Marsing?
Marsing, yes. Marsing. Marzipan.
Make sure all your electrical components are marsed.
And if you're eating cookies, it's cooking.
Right,
exactly. If you haven't seen, Veritasium does a thing on grounding, which is pretty interesting. Or electric. I mean, I kind of ran into it
on stray voltage.
I know. I feel like I could do a whole video on stray voltage, but I mean, it's just incredible.
Stray voltage injuries.
Well, it kills cows.
Cows.
Yeah, cow, I mean, it kills them. I mean, it doesn't shock them to death. They just stop eating.